What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show. We discuss everything you need to know about and what's happening here in our country on a daily basis. It's crazy here. The new Congress is in here and a lot is happening here. The Federal Reserve says there's also going to be some big news here coming very soon here. We'll go over that here as well. Also, the White House says that a debt limit showdown is coming, and well, we'll give you some big news here on that as the country could default. And the White House is already warning of some dire consequences here. We'll go over that here in this video as well. Also, Congress is talking about cutting Social Security and Medicare benefits. I'm going to talk about that here in this video. It's very important. So make sure to watch this video all the way through for all the details. So let's jump right in. Thank you so much for liking and sharing these videos. And here we go. Yeah, Jerome Powell, the head of the Fed, says that the Fed may have to make some unpopular decisions to stabilize prices here and inflation going forward. Wow. Here's what Jerome Powell had to say. Take a listen.
Hey there, good morning, Brian. That's right. Fed Chair Powell making the case for the Federal Reserve's independence in a speech in Stockholm, Sweden. Though the speech not mentioning monetary policy, the Fed Chair appears to defend the Fed's aggressive rate hike campaign, framing the Fed's independence as necessary as stable inflation is the foundation of a healthy economy. And that could require taking actions that perhaps not popular, but necessary. The Fed chair saying, quote, "The case for monetary policy independence lies in the benefits of insulating monetary policy decisions from short-term political considerations. Price stability is the bedrock of a healthy economy and provides the public with immeasurable benefits over time. But restoring price stability when inflation is high can require measures that are not popular in the short term as we raise interest rates to slow the economy." Of course, Powell's comments coming as the Fed has raised rates by 4.25 percentage points over the past year in the most aggressive manner since the 1980s. The Fed chair has repeatedly warned that bringing down inflation would be painful, arguing that the central bank is going to remain steadfast in raising rates and holding them at elevated levels to combat inflation, even as markets pricing in rate cuts later this year. Now, Powell said the Fed should resist the temptation to broaden the central bank's scope to include social issues. He underscored that the central bank should, quote, "stick to our knitting and not wander off to pursue perceived social benefits that are not tightly linked to our statutory goals and authorities." Though when it comes to climate change, Powell noted that in his view, the Fed does have narrow responsibilities to supervise climate-related financial risks for banks. He said, quote, "Without explicit congressional legislation, it would be inappropriate for us to use our monetary policy or supervisory tools to promote a greener economy. We are not and will not be a climate policymaker." Now, Powell is expected to answer some questions after making this speech, where we will closely monitor whether he will make any mention of monetary policy or his outlook for inflation ahead of the Fed's next policy meeting on February 1st. I will be monitoring that and will bring you those headlines as needed.
Yeah, so the Fed has raised interest rates by 4.25% over 2022. And at this rate, there's no indication that they are going to be stopping. And we're expecting another rate hike here in January. This affects a lot of different things. It affects your credit card interest rates. This affects mortgage interest rates. This affects car loans for new cars, for used cars, for leases. This affects personal loans. This affects all sorts of different things. A lot of people don't realize that it affects things like your credit cards rates as well. So yeah, this is a lot of different things. We're going to see rates go even higher here starting as early as this month. We know that mortgage rates more than doubled in 2022. They went from under 3% to like 7%. They dipped a little bit at the end of the year, really just because of mortgage demands. We've seen demand for new mortgages go to a 25-year low. People just stop buying homes, kind of basically. Nobody wants to buy homes because of the mortgage rates. You could pay $1,000 a month more just in interest. That's a lot of money. $1,000 more just in interest for a home that a year ago would have been $1,000 a month less just from the interest payment. So this is a considerable amount of money for a lot of people, for everybody. And we're starting to see home prices come down. The problem is that there's not a lot of supply on the market. So we're not really seeing a home price crash because there's just not a lot of supply. So the supply and demand, we're seeing home prices come down a little bit. We're not seeing the bidding wars anymore. So that's causing home prices to come down. But the supply and demand issue is that there's not a lot of supply. So that's keeping home prices higher than they could be, as low as they could be. So we're not seeing an actual home price crash like what we've seen in 2002 2001 when we had the home mortgage crisis. Now I'm not saying that couldn't happen because there is some writing on the wall that this kind of stuff could happen, but foreclosures are starting to tick up because of the economy and people struggling with inflation right now. So this is a very real possibility that we could see things continue to get worse. So I'll keep you up to date here on this. And as mortgage rates continue to go higher and higher and higher, people that have like adjustable rates that, when they're ARMs, it's called an ARM, adjustable rate mortgage. When those come up for, if for readjustment, that could hurt a lot more people here as well. So we'll see what happens here. But for right now, expect interest rates to continue to go higher and higher going forward. The White House says it doesn't want to go around Congress on a debt ceiling battle, which is already starting to shape up here. And Republicans are already saying, well, here's what's going to happen. The White House said it wasn't on planning to circumvent Congress in order to raise the U.S. debt ceiling, a regular flashpoint in times of a divided government. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre told reporters that we're not considering any measures that would go around Congress, at least yet, calling on lawmakers to raise the limit without preconditions. Republicans who recently took over the U.S. House of Representatives have promised a bare-knuckle fight over any move to increase the limit, which they will have to do, or we'll have a government default. And the government won't have any money to pay bills or even pay Social Security payments or anything. They say they plan to extract concessions to keep the U.S. government from defaulting. Karine Jean-Pierre told reporters aboard Air Force One that Democratic President Joe Biden's White House would make no concessions on the debt ceiling. You can see this is already shaping up to be quite a battle. They said, quote, attempts to exploit the debt ceiling as leverage will not work. There will be no hostage taking. Yeah, this comes as we're seeing a lot of details like this one as Republicans signal cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and other major programs with new House majority as part of their spending cut priorities. The House GOP is itching for a fight over spending cuts, including to major entitlement programs. House Republicans are making it clear that they intend to see cuts to entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare with their new majority in the 118th Congress. Their plans to target health care programs follow demands from a group of conservatives that helped elect Speaker Kevin McCarthy over the weekend. Those far-right lawmakers have sought across the board spending cuts in order to tackle the growing national debt. Yeah, so you guys can let me know your thoughts on this. But the narrow House majority Kevin McCarthy can afford to lose only 4 votes on any bill is far more divided on cuts to defense spending than for entitlement programs. I'm all for a balanced budget, but we're not going to do it on the backs of our troops and our military. Remember that over half of the $1.7 trillion government budget that was just passed, the government spending bill, $1.7 trillion, over half of that was for the military, the defense of our country, whether it's wartime, peacetime, whatever. And they just got a very significant raise to that. I think it was over 8%, something like that. And remember, none of that money is audited. So it's just, they say it's kind of classified information and stuff like that. They put a significant raise in there every year. It's going to be $1 trillion here, honestly, within the next year or two. So, because it goes up every year, and but they're saying no cuts to that. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for defending our country. I have several veterans in my family and in our family line. My brother was a veteran, or is a veteran. He was in the Army. My grandfather was at Pearl Harbor, actually, like 2 or 3 days before Pearl Harbor hit. So don't get me wrong. But a lot of people say, hey, that's over half of the entire spending of our country, and they want to cut Medicare and Social Security. So you guys can let me know your thoughts here on this. And don't get me wrong, it's not just Social Security, it's not Medicare. It's all sorts of things that they're talking about cutting here. And I'll keep you up to date here on our channel on this. And remember that you pay into Social Security and Medicare. These are literally stuff that you use to like pay for food, pay for rents, pay for toilet paper, pay for stuff that literally feed your family. So you guys can let me know your thoughts around this, but this is like real stuff that's happening this year. So this is some real stuff, guys. And if they cut your benefits, Social Security, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Also, here, remember that the national debt, the national deficit, has been going up every year since like forever. In 1990, it was like $3 trillion. Now it's $31 trillion. It really doesn't matter if it's a Republican or a Democrat president. A lot of people, have a lot of ill-conceived ideas on this. Former President Donald Trump actually added about $8 trillion, a little bit more than that, to the national deficit, which was over 25% of the entire national deficit in just 4 years. So again, it doesn't really matter if it's a Republican or Democrat. We'll see how much Biden's going to add. It could be the same or more or less. We'll see what happens. But remember, inflation isn't really tied to the national deficit per se. They're actually kind of independent because we've had inflation kind of bad here in the last year or so. But up until that, because it's kind of different here. Remember, inflation is going on all around the world. Inflation in Europe, actually. So our last inflation indicator was 7.1%. Inflation is actually around 50% higher in Europe. Actually, they're at like 11% in a lot of areas. So don't get me wrong. And actually, Canada has higher inflation than us right now. So I get it. Inflation's bad, but don't get me wrong. Inflation is actually higher in a lot of portions or a lot of places in the world right now. Gas is actually double the price in Europe right now in a lot of places. So the national debt of our country is not actually correlated per se with inflation. Okay, the national debt's been going up since 1990, and it's not, the last year of inflation is not actually an indicator of the national debt and inflation. They're not directly correlated. Okay, it's really just the kind of cost to run our country. Remember, the national debt and over half of it goes directly to the military, Air Force, Navy, branches of that. And I have veterans in my family. We have to spend that on there, but it's also kind of an enormous amount of money that they spend. And they're talking about, oh, we don't want to cut anything there. And also, none of that money's audited. They spend thousands of dollars on a toilet seat and stuff like that. But they want to cut your money on Social Security, which you need money literally for food and rent. So what are you gonna do? Live on the street? So you got to kind of remember here what they're talking about. They're willing to cut your Social Security and your Medicare that you pay for. They literally take your money out of your paycheck for Medicare and for Social Security. And they're talking about cutting that. But I mean, I don't know. I'm literally just kind of flabbergasted about all this. I'm gonna keep you up to date here on this because it's gonna happen here. They're literally talking about doing this here very soon. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. It's completely free to do so. Just click the subscribe button down below and then the bell icon if you haven't yet, so you don't miss out on your videos that come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also, thanks so much for liking and click the share button down below if you have anybody that needs to know about this, family, friends, or share this on social media because this is pretty crazy stuff here. Here's some videos you can watch next. Here's a video about new $1,232 checks that the IRS is sending out to millions of people right now. And here is 6 new changes from Social Security that are happening actually right now as well. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.